We're continuing our coverage of the bombshell corruption story of Donald Trump accepting a $400 million luxury jet from a foreign government that he plans to take with him for his personal use once he leaves office, but only after forcing the American people to pay millions or billions of dollars to upgrade and retrofit it to serve as Air Force One. It's a total racket. The reason we're discussing this isn't just the inherent corruption, but because for the first time, we're starting to see major and increasing pushback from MAGA Republicans, prominent conservatives, and major right-wing publications that are otherwise inclined to grade Trump on a curve. It's staggering, the increasing number, including a MAGA Fox lawyer calling Trump out. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, I've got a lot of things to read to you, starting with this one, a plain old grift from Andy McCarthy, who is a Fox News attorney. This guy's as right-wing as it gets. He's fed up with Donald Trump. He says, in seeking to defend his indefensible acceptance of a $400 million palace in the sky Boeing 747 aircraft from his new friends in Qatar's Sharia supremacist regime, Trump and his flacks again demonstrate they don't grasp the concepts of a constitutional duty and conflicts of interest. This lack of comprehension, or better, this excess of insouciance, is a leitmotif of the Trump family crypto venture on which I'm in the midst of a series of columns. Yes, this MAGA Fox attorney is calling also out Trump's bullshit meme coin, again, which is by itself perhaps the single greatest act of financial corruption we've ever seen from a president, objectively far worse than anything we've ever seen from a Democrat and, quite frankly, even a pre-Trump Republican. But I digress. Let's continue. He says, Qatar is probably second only to Iran when it comes to state sponsorship of jihadist terrorism, and thus naturally was made a major non-NATO ally by the Biden administration. See how he has to slam President Biden and the Biden administration in there? Yet Trump insists that the gift from this foreign regime is nothing to be alarmed about because he plans to accept this largesse, quote, in a very public and transparent action. But see, that's the thing about the appearance of impropriety that animates concerns about conflicts of interest. It appears. A major part of the influence that the benefactor has over the beneficiary is that the gift is public. That enhances the benefactor's prestige and capacity to coerce. No one knows this better than Qatar. Goes on to say, this is why conflicts of interest rules do not say the potentially corrupting transaction must be disclosed. They say, do not engage in potentially corrupting transaction. The Constitution's Foreign Emoluments Clause does not call for, quote, public and transparent action. It prohibits any person holding a federal office of public trust, very much including the president, from accepting, quote, any president, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatsoever from any king, prince, or foreign state. There is an exception. The office holder may accept gifts from a foreign power if Congress consents. Trump could lawfully have his opulent Qatari plane if he could convince lawmakers to approve it. But of course, they wouldn't approve it, both because it's Qatar and because it's outrageous that the United States of America, the most formidable air power in history, should have to obtain a conveyance for the commander-in-chief from any foreign power, let alone a despotic Gulf regime whose major export, besides dollars for Hamas, is an anti-American, anti-Western, anti-Semitic, counter-constitutional ideology. So since Trump wants his new toy and is ballistic that the planned upgrade of Air Force One won't be ready until at least 2027, he has no intention of asking Congress's permission. Asking permission is not how this administration rolls, the Constitution's significant limits on executive authority notwithstanding. And he goes on like this. He goes on to talk about the framers. He says they were not worried about transparency. They were worried about foreign powers purchasing influence over the office of the presidency. And he cites the Federalist Papers and Alexander Hamilton. The peril of corruption by foreign regimes is no less perilous by its dint of being played out in the open. In other words, when people are like, oh, Trump's doing it out in the open, it doesn't matter. It's still corrupt and still dangerous. He says other rationalizations on offer by the administration are ridiculous. Reportedly, Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was a lucratively compensated lobbyist for Qatar from 2020 into 2022, has advised the White House counsel and the Defense Department that the transfer is legitimate because A, it does not violate the bribery law since it's not conditioned on any official act, B, the plane is technically being donated to the United States government rather than to the president, and C, the plane will ultimately be turned over to the Trump Presidential Library Foundation, not retained by the government. Sheesh. First, to trigger the emoluments clause, it's not necessary that the essential elements of a criminal bribery prosecuted be satisfied. The Constitution prohibits gifts, not bribes. The framers were worried about corruption caused by foreign influence, not whether a particular transfer might satisfy the standards for a bribery conviction. Second, the Qatari regime plans to provide the plane for the benefit of Trump, who has complained about the inadequacy of the current Air Force One and who toured the Qatari plane when it was recently parked in Palm Beach to determine whether it would be suitable for his use. Finally, and this is the kill shot, he says the fact that the aircraft would ultimately be transferred to Trump in his post-presidency only underscores that it's a gift to him personally. The likelihood is that this plane would replace Trump's current private plane, Trump Force One, which is almost 20 years old when he bought it in 2011 and is not nearly as lavish as the new Qatari plane said to be on offer. So, he says, I'd like to say that we've never seen anything like this before. Instead, it's par for the course, just like the one the Trump company agreed to build in Qatar. Again, $5.5 billion. So again, this is a MAGA Fox lawyer publicly roasting the Trump administration and Donald Trump for this naked corruption. And I imagine wrestling with the fact that his preferred political candidate and his preferred political party, the Republican Party and Trump, are just morally inferior to President Biden, Kamala Harris, and other elected Democrats. Even the New York Post, conservative publication for which Piers Morgan writes, says Qatar's palace in the sky jet is not a free gift, and Trump shouldn't accept it as one. And this is from the editorial board. What is Donald Trump thinking? He's bragging of winning a $400 million gift, a palace in the sky Boeing 747 jet from Qatar that, in effect, he'll eventually own personally. Sorry, this gift is far from free, and Qatar will surely expect something in return. And the optics are beyond lawful, especially as Congress mulls hundreds of billions of dollars in Medicaid cuts. Yes, Qatar's opulently decked out 747 would be transferred first to the Defense Department and used as Air Force One when needed, while Boeing completes work on replacements for the two 30-year-old jets now in service. It may be okay for Qatar to temporarily lend a plane for America for fill-in use, but the plan calls for the jet to be donated later to Trump's presidential library, arguably making him its personal owner. That not only looks bad, it creates all kinds of conflicts of interest and runs smack into the Constitution's emoluments clause, which prohibits foreign gifts. Trump may claim it's just a nice gesture from friends. After all, he, his family, his pals, and Middle East point man, Steve Witkoff, enjoy good relations with the Qataris. Eric Trump signed a $5.5 billion deal with the Qatari company to build a golf club in villas 40 miles north of Doha. It's expected to net millions for the Trump clan. Qatar spent $643 million in a leveraged buyout to bail out Witkoff and his partners in a New York hotel project. But again, Qatar is famous for seeking to buy influence. And it's not just Qatar. Trump and his family have also been pushing their crypto projects, the Trump meme coin and World Financial Liberty, attracting a range of foreign buyers who may be seeking access. It seems deja vu Biden corruption all over again. And in the case of the jet, as Dan Raviv notes, Qatar truly isn't a friend, but a frenemy. Though it lets the United States maintain an airbase in Qatar and mediates Israel-Hamas ceasefire talks, it also cooperates with Iran, funds Hamas and hosts its leaders, spreads anti-U.S. and anti-Semitic hatred via Al Jazeera, and buys influence at U.S. college campuses that, surprise, promote terrorism. So, again, it goes on like this in its right-wing claims, but attacking Trump from the right, even they recognize that this is corrupt and unacceptable. And again, they mentioned President Biden. I just want to say, even if we take every single claim ever made about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden at face value and dialed it up to 11, grant them the benefit of the doubt, which we're not going to do, but we're just demonstrating. Even if we did that, this is just objectively orders of magnitude worse, because we're not talking about a couple of $1 million for a painting or a couple of $1 million because your civilian son, Hunter Biden, who was never in government office, sits on the board of an energy company. We're talking about billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, depending on what $400 million for the Qatari jet plane and billions of dollars based on the crypto. This is just orders of magnitude worse. Orders. Going back to the National Review, another right-wing publication, their editors also lashed out at Trump. Poison plane. When ABC reported the Trump administration was ready to accept a $400 million luxury 747 jet as a gift from Qatar that would be used as the new Air Force One, many of Trump's fiercest social media defenders rushed to declare it fake news. But then Trump himself took to social media to defend the move. Trump has been growing frustrated that Boeing is years behind schedule in manufacturing a new Air Force One, and under the delayed timeline, it won't be available during his presidency. While Boeing's manufacturing issues have been well documented and are worthy of criticism, it in no way justifies the brazen decision to take such a lavish gift from a foreign government. For one plane, the plane is a potential security threat given all the possible places to hide listening devices within a jumbo jet. Assuming that issue could be dealt with through an extensive security sweep, there are ethical concerns. Again, they cite the emoluments clause. Under the U.S. Constitution, the president is prohibited from accepting any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatsoever from any king, prince, or foreign state without congressional approval. The administration is trying to get around this by arguing the gift is to the Department of Defense, and that after he leaves office, the plan is for it to be decommissioned and transferred to Trump's presidential library. The fact that its ownership will not remain with the U.S. government would seem to cut against Trump's argument that it isn't a gift, but even if his lawyers found a loophole to make it technically legal, it doesn't mean it's ethical. The whole point of the emoluments clause is to prevent office holders from being influenced by foreign governments due to personal gain. Trump will clearly gain by having access to a plane he prefers, and there are plenty of opportunities for conflicts of interest given the key role Qatar is playing in the Middle East. And it goes on to criticize Qatar. He says there's they say, because it's the entire editorial board, there is absolutely nothing good that can come from an American president feeling he owes something to this terrorist-loving government. Again, I'm just imagining what they would write if this were President Biden. They'd be probably much more apoplectic, but even they, the conservative editors of the National Review, are condemning Trump. And finally, we'll end on this one, okay? This is the editorial board of the conservative Wall Street Journal, a sister publication of Fox News. Beware Qataris bearing a 747 gift. Trump confirmed Monday he intends to accept a luxurious jumbo jet as a gift from the royals of Qatar, and he argued only, quote, a stupid person would refuse such an offer. Let's see. When Middle Eastern emirs offer the president a 9-figure gift, what comes to mind isn't thrift. Trump is upset by Boeing's delays in delivering a new Air Force One, and he wants to convert the Qatari plane for official travel. The Pentagon would manage the plane as an official U.S. aircraft. Then, at the end of his second term, Trump plans to transfer the 747 to his Presidential Library Foundation. Trump said Monday he, quote, wouldn't be using it after he leaves office, citing the Reagan Library, which has a retired Air Force One on display. But it isn't hard to imagine Trump deciding in 2029 to fly it around for a few more years, and the savings Trump touts are a rounding error on the federal budget. Taking the Qatari gift could also be a legal morass. Again, they cite the emoluments clause. The Constitution prohibits anyone holding a federal, quote, office or of profit or trust from accepting, quote, any present or, quote, emolument from a foreign state unless Congress approves. During Trump's first term, there was inconclusive litigation over whether that clause was triggered when other governments booked hotel rooms and so forth at Trump properties. We were skeptical of those arguments, but a donated 747 from the royals of Qatar is a much bigger deal. And just again, by the way, this goes to show they are Trump sympathetic. The fact that they are skeptical that foreign governments booked hotel rooms at Trump properties when Trump didn't divest himself of those businesses and therefore directly financially benefited from them just goes to show they are right-wing and they want Trump to succeed, and they're inclined to grade him on a curve. They're inclined to indulge some of his corruption because I assure you, if Barack Obama owned hotels or Joe Biden owned hotels or even Hunter Biden owned hotels and governments booked hotel rooms at the Hunter Biden Marriott or whatever, the Wall Street Journal would be demanding that Hunter Biden be arrested and potentially executed. Again, I'm just pointing this out. They grade him on a curve. They grade Trump on a curve, and they are condemning this. Media reports say White House lawyers think accepting the jet wouldn't constitute bribery since the offer isn't contingent on any official action by Trump. Maybe so, but sometimes quote, sometimes the scandal is not what is illegal, but what is legal, as our friends at the New York Sun put it. Qatar might feel that it's owed at least Trump's goodwill. If the emir calls the White House to share his views on Iran, Israel, and the region, won't he expect Trump to pick up the phone? Should voters even have to wonder? It demeans the presidency to have a foreign government handing out such a valuable gift to America's elected leader. This isn't France offering the Statue of Liberty for public display and enjoyment. By the way, Congress passed a joint resolution in 1877 authorizing and directing the president to accept that statue in recognition of French friendship and America's centenary. And I think it was President Grover Cleveland, And I'll also point out that, because that comparison has been made by Trump defenders on social media, well, I guess we got to get rid of the Statue of Liberty now. No, again, that did not violate the Constitution because Congress approved. They gave the president permission to accept the statue, number one. And number two, Grover Cleveland nor any president they didn't take the statue with them once they left office. So anybody making the Statue of Liberty comparison is objectively stupid and you should make fun of them. Trump's plan to take the Qatari jet is a political gift to Democrats. The GOP objected, rightly and loudly, to Hunter Biden's influence peddling abroad while his father was in high office, followed by his selling art at inflated prices while President Biden sat in the White House. Now the Trump family is making much money in opaque sales of crypto coins, while Trump says it's simply good sense to accept a free jumbo jet from Qataris bearing gifts. Okay? I want you to note this is how they end it. What they don't say, what they know, but they don't say, is this is objectively worse. Hunter Biden was not president. So dial it back. Let me conclude with this. Notice the couple of references to Hunter Biden. It's because these people understand. They know. Holy shit, by the same standard we try to impose on Joe and Hunter Biden, Donald Trump is objectively far worse. He's objectively far more corrupt and brazenly corrupt. But they can't quite bring themselves to openly admit that. But let's go ahead and establish this. The great philosopher, Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, said, with great power comes great responsibility. He's right. It also entails that the greater the power, the greater the responsibility. And people who have a lot of power should be held to a higher standard than those who don't have power. Okay? The president of the United States is the most powerful person on earth. So Joe Biden, when he was president, should have been held to the highest possible standard. So too should Donald Trump. And again, any MAGA Republican, like, no, we got to grade Trump on a curve. They're losers, and you should make fun of them because they're unprincipled losers. We hold presidents to the same standard, or should, Republican or Democrat. Okay? So Hunter Biden was not president. Hunter Biden was the deeply troubled son, civilian son. He wasn't even a senior official in the Trump. He wasn't like Jared Kushner or Ivanka, who were members of the Trump administration with security clearances, with influence. They should have been held. Here's a hot take. Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner should be held to a higher standard than Hunter Biden. Jared Kushner should be scrutinized and should have been scrutinized far more than Hunter Biden. The fact that you know everything about Hunter Biden's issues and his nepotism, but not Jared Kushner's, that Jared Kushner's has flown under the radar, is a moral failing of both parties, deliberately for the Republicans because they want to grade Trump on a curve, and quite frankly for the Democrats as well, because we should have been like, okay, we accept the fact that Hunter Biden is troubled and nepotistic, and if you want to call it corrupt, but your guy Jared Kushner is objectively worse because Jared Kushner was actually in the White House serving as a senior advisor. So again, morally inferior to Hunter Biden. Trump is the president of the United States and should be held to a higher standard than anybody except for Biden when Biden was president. This is orders of magnitude worse. This isn't Donald Trump's dipshit son. This isn't like Don Jr. selling a piece of art at inflated prices. You could say that's nepotistic, that's a level of corruption. That's fine. You can make those claims. But this is worse. This is the president engaging in corruption on hundreds of millions of dollars. That Qatari jet is valued at $400 million. And think about this. The taxpayers, you and me and everybody else, we will have to pay for the security upgrades needed to make it Air Force One. Trump can't. Air Force One is the most secure plane on planet Earth and far more valuable intrinsically than this Qatari jet. Why? Because of all the military capabilities and communication capabilities of Air Force One. Again, it can survive an EMP. It's insane what this machine is. Now, this Qatari jet is newer, more lavish. It's got all that gold and shit, and a bunch of bedrooms. But the Air Force and the Defense Department would have to upgrade it. Secret Service would have to upgrade it. So it's going to take millions, perhaps billions of dollars to do that, which is one of the reasons why Boeing has caused the delays or has delays trying to get these new Air Force Ones out. So again, the scale is just monumentally greater than anything we've ever seen from Hunter Biden. And my quibble or my beef with these conservatives calling Trump out is that they don't have the moral courage to acknowledge that. Like, yeah, we bitched a lot about Hunter Biden, and we stand by it, but this is objectively far worse, which means we're morally compelled to bitch even louder at Trump. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, it's important to note that Trump is getting increasingly vociferous backlash in the National Review, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, all conservative outlets, and a MAGA Fox lawyer named Andy McCarthy who works for the National Review and for Fox. That means it's pretty bad. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.